Welcome to Economy Made Simple. I am Shamubeel Eaqub, the Chief Economist at Simplicity. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and I'm here to make sense of it. Brought to you by Simplicity, New Zealand's non-profit KiwiSaver and fund manager, who are on a mission to make Kiwis richer and smarter with money. Hello, and welcome back to Economy Made Simple. I'm Shamubeel Eaqub, and today I want to speak to you about what's happening in the economy. There's a lot going on in the world right now. We've moved on from tariff wars to real wars. What's happening in the Middle East is extraordinarily frightening. For New Zealand, it is quite far. We won't have immediate effects straight away, but we will see changes in oil prices. We will see uncertainty around shipping routes, which of course has big implications for countries like New Zealand that trade a lot with the world. The reason why we're seeing so much uncertainty in the global economy and in defense and in wars is because there is something that has changed in global politics and societies around the world. Over the course of the last 100 years, we've seen quite a lot of progress. We've seen poverty reduce, we've seen inequality between countries diminish, but what we've also seen is inequality within countries rise. That has led to increases in polarization. We've seen an increase in hardening of attitudes, and a lot of the norms around the global economy, around global society, around how we think about defense, how we think about wars, how we think about treating each other is breaking down. As a result, we're seeing wars taking place more often, we're seeing more aggression, and there are fewer, easier ways to transition out of it. So we should expect that things will be harder to resolve. For New Zealand, it means that we are going to experience more volatility, more uncertainty, both for our exporters who are directly affected, but also us as consumers, because prices of things that we consume, particularly things like petrol, might go up and down quite significantly. Locally, we're seeing an economy that's still doing it pretty tough. This winter is going to be challenging. We saw some early signs of returning hope and optimism, but they haven't really sustained. What we're seeing is an economy that slowed very sharply over the course of the last year, and through the middle of 2025, things are probably going to be bumping along the bottom. This recession has been very unusual. Usually, we tend to see a lot of job losses, people's incomes being hit hard. This time around, it has been much more of a business recession. We've seen profits being under a lot of pressure. We're seeing businesses at the margin closing down, but we haven't seen people being let go quite as much as previous cycles. This time around, we've had roughly half as many job losses as we had seen during the global financial crisis. While we have seen an increase in the number of businesses hitting more difficult times through liquidations, receiverships, and the like, which are at near record highs, what has been surprising is we're also seeing near record levels of number of businesses in New Zealand. Lots of new businesses are starting despite the recession, despite the pressures that we're seeing in many parts of the economy. This is, again, that unusual element of this economic cycle is just not like what we had seen in previous ones. When you look at the number of people who are employed across New Zealand, it is still near record highs compared to what we had seen in the past 30 or 40 years. That's because businesses are holding on to their staff. They've had so much difficulty hiring people, training them, and keeping them, they're loath to let them go. Instead, what we're seeing is our work is being reshaped. We're starting to see lots of people working fewer extra hours, less overtime, working fewer multiple jobs. So there has been some rationalization, but by and large, people are holding on to their work. That means when the economic recovery comes, it's going to be faster to take hold. Recessions happen at the margin. What we've seen in the labor market is, yes, there have been job losses, but have been quite modest compared to previous cycles. This time around, we've seen about half as many job losses as the GFC. New Zealand is very much in a holding pattern through this winter. What we're seeing in both consumers and businesses is similar. We're seeing that people are finding current conditions to be quite difficult, similar to what it was last year, but there is much more optimism and hope for next year. We're waiting for some signs that our optimism is justified, that we have more money in our bank accounts, that we've got more orders from our businesses and clients, but it hasn't quite happened yet. Those preconditions are very close, but we're not yet ready to fire. Part of the reason why I'm so optimistic about a recovery later this year is because of that really big driver of the economy, interest rates. When the price of money comes down and there is more money in the economy because banks are lending, you will absolutely see a recovery that strengthens. Interest rates are coming down because inflation has eased. Through the COVID years, we saw multiple reasons why inflation rose. Initially because of the supply constraints during COVID, then because we just had so much demand on the back of extraordinary amounts of fiscal and monetary stimulus. But then central banks around the world raised interest rates, that slowed economies, reduced inflation, and now we're seeing inflation being quite moderate. Interest rates have come down. They take about 12 to 18 months to come through the economy, and we should be seeing those positive influences towards the end of this year. And the other good news is that while things are weak, it's not worsening anymore. When I'm looking at things like the amount of concrete being poured, how much money people are spending, number of building consents, the number of cars that are being registered, the amount of fertilizer that our farmers are buying, they're all showing signs that after falling for about a year or so, they have stabilized in the last few months. We're not out of the woods yet, but it's nice to see that it's not going backwards, at least we're going sideways. The brightest spot of the economy right now is our primary sector. Whether it's dairy, meat, we're starting to see very strong prices internationally, which will help our exporters. We're also seeing very good growing conditions at home, which means we'll produce more and earn more. This is really welcome because the last couple of years have been quite challenging for different reasons. We're not completely out of the woods because there are still some risks, whether it's the war, tariff wars, or weakness in consumer spending in China. These are risks that are at the margin. But the overall story for our export sector and our provincial economy is looking really, really good for the next 12 months. I have not yet seen that concrete evidence that hope is turning into action yet. The big indicator that I look at to really see if businesses believe in this recovery is if they're advertising for vacancies. At last count, something like 3/4 of New Zealand businesses had a vacancy in their business. And yet, job ads are at record lows. When job ads start to increase, we can have absolute confidence that this recovery is truly taking shape. In addition to the global uncertainty, there are two headwinds that face New Zealand. The first one is fiscal austerity. The government has announced reductions in its spending over the course of the next couple of years, and because the government is such a big part of the economy, both through its OPEX and its CAPEX, so infrastructure investment, welfare payments, education, health, that it will put a headwind against this economic recovery. The other headwind is what's happening with net migration. When we have population growth, it just means the economy is growing. There's just a little bit more demand from those additional people in our country. But net migration is moderating because there are fewer people coming from overseas, but also more New Zealanders are going overseas. These twin forces means that net migration will be a headwind to the economic recovery. So the outlook for the New Zealand economy is somewhat optimistic. We're going to have a tough winter, but we can see the positive signs towards the end of this year. We've got the uncertainty around what's happening with wars, tariff wars, and those global uncertainties. We've got uncertainties from fiscal austerity and from slowing net migration, but we're also seeing some positive signs. We're seeing interest rates come down, banks becoming more willing to lend. We're starting to see the economy at least stabilize rather than falling as it had been for the course of the last year or so. As interest rates improve, that lagged positive effect will drive a recovery, but we have to be patient. The big indicator I'm looking for to be confident that this recovery is finally here is when our businesses start to advertise for jobs. When that happens, I think we can be confident that this economy has turned the corner. Everything we cover in this session is for general information only. We are not tailoring our comments to your financial situation or providing financial advice or recommendations. This information and comments we provide are not intended to convey any guarantees as to the future performance of any investment products, asset classes, or capital markets. Past performance is no guarantee of future performance. Please refer to our full disclosure statement in the description.